Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Prosperous Nonprofit. I'm super excited to be here for this little bonus episode with Jess Campbell. Jess, welcome.
Stephanie, we're gonna have some fun. This is such an honor to be here.
I know. It was a little bit of a last minute schedule on both of our sides, but this is it's just such a timely conversation that I had to squeeze it in. So I'm really excited. If our listeners have not heard of you, which would be kind of strange if they hadn't, but if they haven't, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
You're so nice. So hi everyone. My name is Jess Campbell. I'm the founder of Out in the Boons. I tell people that we help nonprofits discover donors in their email lists. So my place and playground to hang out is all spaces, email marketing, fundraising campaigns, end of year campaigns, and all the marketing and fundraising that comes with all of that. I am a former director of development, so I myself has been in a lot of your listeners' shoes out there, meeting with donors, making asks, doing the follow-up. And now I sit on the other side where I help teach nonprofits how to do that themselves.
Amazing. And what type of organizations do you work with? Like what size are we talking about? Little nonprofit startups or like big ones or everywhere, everything in between?
Yeah, for sure. I tend to attract small and mid-sized nonprofits, and I define that by organizations $10 million and below. So my style is less formal. And so I don't have a lot of like the universities and hospitals and colleges coming my way. But I know that small and mid-sized is relative. So I usually work with teams that have a director of development or founder plus a director of development and maybe a small team. So not total startup, not super large fundraising machines, somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know you're like the email queen. I just got an email from you today with like a super funny story about a package that your mom sent to you in college with the book. He's just not that into you.
Yes.
So storytelling is clearly like your jam. Has this always been something that you have focused on, or has this been a learned skill over the years? Where did your incredible storytelling for the purpose of inspiring giving or inspiring action on the other side, where did that come from?
Yes. I mean, so I have to say, I don't know that I would have classified myself as a strong storyteller growing up, but as you just referenced, I did just send out an email about my mother, and she's an amazing storyteller. So I am lucky enough to have grown up and had modeled to me what excellent storytelling is. And I'll just say off the bat, when people ask me to rate myself as a fundraiser, I would never, ever, ever say like I'm an A+ star fundraiser, because the amount of times that I've actually had to sit across from someone and ask them for $1 million or whatever is few and far between. I very, very, very much lean on my relationship skills. And so donations have more often than not been offered to me before I've actually had to ask for money. I've literally had donors after several meetings or getting to know them or whatever be like, we're considering $1 million gift. How does that match up against like what your expectations for us are? And so storytelling is a huge, huge, huge part of that. I was also gifted such luck in my career as a fundraiser by having some amazing mentors and bosses that taught me through example. So I had this one boss, her name's Elizabeth Daly. She had a theater background, and then now she's in real estate, which I feel like the two things like just make for a great fundraiser. So in her in-between career, I worked under her. And when I was working for the organization, it's called Chrysalis, that provides homeless folks or people who are returning citizens employment opportunities. At first I started where she would bring me to everything, but she would do the talking. And then she would kind of like throw me some passes. Like she would tell the story and then I would tell the story. And then by the end, she would just let me really lead and tell the story. And I had it, and I realized that so many nonprofit people are not gifted that mentorship, but she really modeled for me what really great storytelling to invoke action was. And then as I started my business, I just realized like it's not my jam. It's not my style to be super salesy. It feels super duper yucky. Both of my parents were in sales growing up. And I remember just being like, I am never doing that. And then lo and behold, I become a fundraiser, which is like a different form of sales. And so I had to make it work for me. And so, I mean, I've made donor cry like out of happiness. I have like really gotten good at sparking emotion, funny, entertainment. And for me, that's just what works. Other people a little more hard hitting, and that's okay too. So I think you have to find your style, and then it's practice, right? Like I'm on a bajillion email newsletters. I am everywhere. I'm reading everything. I love books. I love podcasts. And I think as a consumer, when you notice good storytelling, you adapt and you modify, and you too you practice and get better.
I love that, because I've never thought of myself as a storyteller either. Because I'm like, I'm not that person that can just like sit around a campfire and tell the story that everyone is like paying attention to and holding on to every word. I'm like, that's not me at all. But in the written word, it does feel different. And it's really, like you said, about like building that relationship and finding that little piece of connection with who you're talking to. And I think that's like super good encouragement for anybody listening who's like, oh my gosh, I have to write these emails to our donors and I'm not a storyteller, but I know there's this message I need to convey. So how do you help nonprofit leaders figure out how to tell their story in a way that feels authentic and genuine and good, and also ethical, and not sort of like that like exploitation kind of thing? So how do you, what advice do you have for going that direction?
For sure. So one thing I always advise my nonprofit fundraisers and leaders is to really have I stories, meaning you have to go and sit with your program from time to time. You need to go talk to the people that you serve, or you need to walk the dogs at the dog rescue, or you need to go water the garden in your environmental center. You need to touch the work with I stories, because it just sounds different when you say, oh, Sandra from our program team told me about this person one time that did this, versus like, well, when I sat down with James, this is the story he told me, or this was my experience with James. So I would say, if you haven't touched your program in a minute, take next Thursday, carve out a couple hours and go do that, because it will really, really make a difference. I want to address what you said about ethical storytelling, because it's not something I knew about when I was a fundraiser, and now I've become more educated. So I'm a big proponent of compensating people for their time. If they are going to sit down with you and tell you their story, that can be in the form of actual cash, that can be in the form of a gift card. But if you are asking someone for their labor, I encourage you to compensate them, even if they're a part of your program. They do not owe you that. And then I also just want you to be really sensitive. I have a lot of clients who do work in like the domestic violence space, or in maybe even the foster care system. And it is not worth rebringing up their trauma for the sake of your fundraising message. And so what are other ways that you can do that? Can you talk to the caseworker and get a version of their story, not first person, but your first person is still with that caseworker, right? Can you tell stories like through animation? I think that that's actually great visual storytelling tactic, to like hire an animator and tell the story through that lens. Other stories like that come up are everyday stories. Like, it's the you tripping down the stairs. It's you forgetting your kid's lunchbox and having to turn around and make another trip. It's you spilling coffee on your white shirt as you're walking out the door. People love to see themselves in the stories. And so what I do is I'm just like, what's the point of the story I'm trying to tell? And then I work my way backwards. So is it, I'm trying to motivate, I'm trying to relate, I'm trying to reveal a struggle. I'll tell that story, and then I'll transition it to the point through something that's happening at my organization. The other thing I think nonprofits like really miss is that you can tell the same version of the story over and over again. I have one client that works with adults who have been either homeless, incarcerated, or in the foster care system in Los Angeles. And they have a training program that teaches people how to become production assistants in Hollywood. And he's always like, but we told that story last month. But we told that story last month. I'm like, you can tell that story every hour of every day, and your readers will never, ever, ever get bored. Think of these big old brands like McDonald's, Nike. They've had the same logo, the same slogan for like a bajillion years. Like, you out there with your limited resources and your tiny budget do not need to be like clever, be clear. That's such a gift to people. And then just some other ideas of stories that I think are really worth telling. Like, what's the origin story of your organization? Who's a staff member that really hit it out of the park? Who's a volunteer or a board member that just really like connected with your program? Anything, any version of that is always good. It's never boring. It might feel boring to you because you talk about it and breathe it all day long, but your reader, think about open rates and like social media click rates. They're super low. So chances are, like, for every story you even tell, like maybe 1 out of 5 is actually getting read. So repetition is actually going to be your friend. That's why telling the same thing over and over again will help you, because then people will remember you for that. That was
Exactly.
very
Oh my
long-winded.
gosh.
Sorry.
No, I mean, I feel like I should have been taking notes. But when we have the show notes, it'll have a nice little checklist of everything you just rattled off, because that was really good. And I just think everything you listed just sort of takes the overwhelm out of communication, out of, telling the story, that it doesn't need to be some grand thing. It can be, like you said, telling the story of a volunteer who's really made an impact with your organization, and who knows what that could inspire that maybe a different story wouldn't. So I love that. As we are now, we're recording this at the end of July. This is going to go live in just a couple of weeks in August. So we're starting to think about year-end campaigns, and you are a fundraiser. So this is, like, I'm sure, what is 100% on your mind, because as we, I know from looking at the financials that a lot of organizations, like 50, 60, 70% of their annual revenue lands in Q4. And that is huge. And I also would imagine that, like, no pressure on the fundraisers right now, right? Like, that's a lot of pressure to like make sure that everything is in line so you can raise this huge amount of money at the end of the year. So think about end of year campaigns, thinking about emails. What should fundraisers be thinking about right now?
I'm so glad you asked this, because the landscape has really changed compared to 2 and 3 years ago. There was a report that just came out that, not to be doomsday, but giving is down. Donors are giving less. And so my first piece of advice is to really like take stock. Where are you present day? Are you on track to hit your numbers? Are you behind? Are first-time donors lapsing, or are they retaining? What's your monthly giving program? Is it growing steadily? Like, what's the deal, right? I always say, like, you can't measure what you don't track. So you have to know where are you as of August 2023, when we're talking pretty much. From there, I think that you need to assess and do what will give you the highest return on your investment, which is your donors. So at this point, it's going to take a lot to turn a brand new human into a donor by December. It just is. It's not impossible, but if I was a limited resourced nonprofit with very few staff members, I would be focused less on acquisition right now and more on having meaningful donor engagement touch points with my previous year donors. My last 18 months of donors, I would be checking in for no reason. I would be giving them an update on where their gift was spent. I would be inviting them to a meetup to vision cast forward and say, this is where we've been, but this is where we aim to go. I would be thanking them with gusto. I would just really be like doing the things, making the calls, writing the handwritten thank you notes now, because 99% of nonprofits are not going to do that work. And then as it turns towards the fall, you can start what I call the warm-up phase or the lead-up phase, which is the moment where you're going to start pointing your content towards the thing you'll be asking for at the end of the year. So let's say, you are a dog rescue and you do a couple things. You not only rehouse dogs, but you provide emergency medical attention. And maybe you also like teach people how to train and like walk their dog on a leash and stuff like that. But maybe at the end of the year, you're really trying to bring home or rescue 100 really high need medical cases. If that's your goal at the end of the year, I want you to start pointing your content towards high need medical cases in your content, in your email, on your social media. So I want you to turn off the faucet a little bit on those other programs and turn it directly towards the thing you're raising money for. That way, when it's time to actually ask for money, people are informed, people are inspired, they're educated. They're not like, wait, what? They do what? You don't want to come out of left field. You want it to be a really natural progression. And I think having some focus on that storytelling is really helpful for folks. So that would be kind of my loose to-do list, 1, 2, and 3. So just to recap, it's assess where you are. Number 2, what did I say? It's engage your donors. And then 3, it's start pointing people towards the thing you want to raise money for come November, December.
That's so simple, yet I feel like so many organizations don't do that. It's like, number 1, we don't do the sort of assessment phase. We're just like, okay, what did we do last year? Let's get ready to rinse and repeat, do it again. And we don't even know if that's relevant anymore. Like you said, there's a constantly changing landscape, right? And so understanding where we are is so important. And we're going to talk about that a little bit in my presentation at the summit, which we are going to talk about shortly. I think the other thing is having a goal, like a very specific goal. You mentioned having, okay, we want to do this specific thing. Our goal I would imagine, should not just be like, we want to raise this much money. Well, what are we funding? Like, what are we actually working towards? Because I feel like if we have the internal focus, then our donors can see that. And like you said, the content is leading up to it. So it's top of mind and it feels more, like I can relate with it and attach more to it versus just like, we're this organization that has 12 different programs and we're just raising a bunch of money. Like that doesn't feel connecting, I don't know if that's the right word, but.
Absolutely. And I think as fundraising shops, we have the ability to actually have goals that are more holistic. For example, I think you could have a goal around open rates or click rates for your emails. You could have a goal around what your return rate, if you send a hard copy appeal. You can have a goal for your response time for thanking a donor. Like we want to thank every donor within the first 48 hours that a gift comes in. You can also have a goal around retention, increased number of donors. So it's like less about the amount of money and more like we want 100 new donors this campaign. And I think having those goals and stating them and writing them on paper, again, allows you to assess and make adjustments along the way. So for example, if you're like, we want to have a 40% or higher open rate on all of our emails and you're sitting at 35, guess what? You got to figure out your email subject lines. You got to change the day and time that you're sending your emails, because if people aren't opening your emails, they're not clicking and then they're not donating. So it allows you to make adjustments. But again, you have to do those assessments of like where you stand today. Otherwise, you don't know if you're like winning or if you're behind,
Exactly. I feel like honestly, this information is, it's genius. And at the same time, it's stuff that we hear all the time in the sort of entrepreneur, especially this like online entrepreneur space. But I don't feel like I've seen this taught for nonprofits. And so I love this. And you also have a solution for that in the Raise More Together Summit that you're hosting. How many years have you done the summit now?
So this will be, I think, the 4th year, but it's the 6th round. For a couple of years, it got really wild and crazy and did 2 a year.
Oh my gosh. And
I
you
know.
survived and you're still doing it.
I know.
Amazing.
It's one of my favorite things I do.
Oh, well, I mean, okay. So before we get like too far into it, tell us what the Raise More Together Summit is.
Yeah. So back in a long time ago, I was just really craving some solid fundraising information and expertise from like experts, real nonprofits doing the work. And I just really wasn't finding what I was looking for. And just in the way I operate, I was like, I'll just build it myself. And so I'm not kidding. In 6 weeks from idea to actually launching the summit, I had like over 800 people register for this thing. And it was like, buckle up, here we go. And it was a blast. And I don't know if it's just not knowing what I don't know or what, but it was super fun. It was super actionable. All the content is really practical. I always say I'm a practical, tactical girly. And so it's less on like the theory of this or like the mindset. We do have some people that talk mindset, but it's a lot of like how to's. And so it's short, actionable sessions to get people to step into action immediately. Even this time around, we're going to have get shit done sessions so that people will have carved time on their calendar to like make those 15 thank you calls or like send out or prep that email and just get it done in community with other nonprofit leaders and fundraisers who have some sort of fundraising responsibility. So it's 3 days. It's a blast. So many people have made friends. Like my friend this summer, she is kind of bebopping around and she met up in person with people she's directly met from the summit, and I was sending me pictures and stuff. And I was like, this is so cool. And the other thing I'll just mention, it has a really diverse lineup. And so it's a lot of speakers you may not yet have heard from, but they're geniuses, like they're superstars. And, you know, maybe they just haven't gotten the platform or the megaphone that they deserve just yet. So you'll get to hear and meet them through this.
Oh my gosh. I'm so excited. So this is my first time participating. I feel like I feel like I may have heard of it in the past, but we were connected recently and I knew that I wanted to be a part of this. So I've got 2 sessions in there that I'm very, very excited about. And full disclosure, 100 Degrees is sponsoring the summit. So
I'm so
super
excited.
I know, because it's given us so many opportunities to work together.
Yes.
So fantastic. Okay. So who's the summit for? Is it for all nonprofit leaders? Is it for just fundraisers? Tell us who it's for.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've done some assessments actually. So I know that like 89% of the folks that come to this are nonprofit leaders, directors of development, nonprofit founders. We do have a couple people who are like board members or comms people, but the majority of folks are the people at nonprofit organizations that have fundraising responsibilities. We also know that the average budget is around $3 million. So we have had people who do work at these large institutions all the way down to startup nonprofits. And I would say that we fall in like the medium to advanced content. So if you are like a baby nonprofit fundraiser, this is going to be like you playing with some of the big kids in the sandbox. But I think that that's okay to be ahead, like around people who are a couple steps ahead of you. But this isn't like how to fill out your 501c3 form and like build your board from scratch. That's not so much the content. It's more like how advanced techniques for like how to build your email list, or it's how to like your session. I'm so excited about your 2 sessions about how to merge the storytelling using numbers and the words to build this beautiful, compelling picture around making an ask and all of those things. We have messaging, we have branding, we have marketing, we have how to raise $500,000 in individual gifts by December 31st. It's a real combination, but what I love about this summit is like the style. And the reason I say that is because I understand firsthand how busy all you listeners are. And the idea of sitting down and watching 20 recorded sessions makes me sick to my stomach. And so what's cool about this is we have live components where you can meet the speakers like Stephanie, ask her questions live, but we also have pre-recorded sessions that we put in a private podcast feed so you can like legit listen on the go. We have this amazing Facebook community with over 1,500 folks. So people are like asking questions, chatting away, making friends. We have prizes, we have giveaways. Like, I've just tried to think of it all, and every year it gets better and better. And this year is just not going to be an exception to that. I'm going to bring it.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Okay, so it is August. It kicks off August 16th, right?
Wednesday, August 16th. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. And if people are like, okay, oh, and I don't know if you mentioned this, but this is like worth probably thousands of dollars. I mean, if you think
Yeah.
about like the value that you would get in going to a conference and having not only going to a conference, but having all this content, like you have it now, like it's yours. And what does it cost? Just remind our lovely listeners.
Yes. So we have a $27 general admission ticket and then a $77 VIP ticket. It's worth its weight in gold. It's kind of a no-brainer.
Like,
and like, I've had people that have come all 6 sessions. So it's all brand new content. We're not repeating and recycling. It's brand new speakers every single time. And, you know, we're really following a playbook of like what is happening present now. You know, we're not talking about pandemic strategies because like that's not relevant anymore. We're talking about AI and ChatGPT and getting visible on LinkedIn and like all sorts of new things that are happening right now. So it's worth it.
no less than $100.
Yeah.
Less than $100. Yes, 100% no brainer. Okay, fantastic. Let's see. What else do I want to ask you about the summit? What else should our listeners know? I mean, I'll be there, you'll be there, all the other amazing speakers will be there. What is the website where they can find out all the info on the summit?
Yeah, so I'm sure you'll put the link in the show notes, but it's just raisemoretogether.co. .co, raisemoretogether.co, and then it's really easy to sign up. And you know, I'd love to see a lot of new faces there. I was also just thinking like, it's just, we always time it in August, which people have advised me against because it's like summer, people going back to school, like people are a little checked out. But the reason why we do that is because the theme of this year is closing your 2020 fundraising year out strong. And if you really want to do that, you need to start thinking about the last 5 months of the year in August, not in like November. And so that's why we do this summit now. So you have all the information, tools, resources, and can even carve out some time to get things done now versus like in the thick of it.
Yeah. And you mentioned this. I love that. I mean, I'm thinking about 2024 budgets right now. So I'm like in the same place as you. We're starting in August with our clients to start thinking through, okay, what is our 2024 big picture? And then like taking that down. Okay, what's our revenue? What's our fundraising goal? And then really starting to build out the budget. So we're not starting to think about next year in like December, 2 weeks before we all go on holiday. You had mentioned, I know I was going to say before we started recording, you had said like, you know, Q4, end of year giving, end of year campaigns is about so much more than just Giving Tuesday. Can you tell us kind of what you mean by that? Because I know that Giving Tuesday can be like a big day for a lot of organizations, but I would think that like, okay, when we're thinking about Q4 and year end fundraising, like Giving Tuesday should not be like the only thing we're thinking about.
Yeah. I mean, so on paper, Giving Tuesday raised $3.1 billion for nonprofits across the globe in 2022. That's an exorbitant amount of money. It's also the most competitive giving day of the year. And with millions of nonprofits, I mean, I do this every year where I assess what comes through my inbox on Giving Tuesday, and I had 52 asks from various nonprofits.
Wow.
So if you were trying to stand out, I probably have a very high number of nonprofit asking me for money on Giving Tuesday just because I'm on so many email lists, but you're probably competing with like 6, 7, 8 other nonprofits. And so I see some nonprofits just going all in on Giving Tuesday when the data shows us that December is actually the most profitable giving month, specifically all the way through the last 3 days of the year. This year, Giving
Yes.
Tuesday falls on like November 29th. So if you go all in on Giving Tuesday and just skip December, you are missing out on like so much potential revenue. And that's why I say it's a real campaign. Like you have to think through the warm up phase, maybe the Giving Tuesdays, the kickoff all through the month of December. And then even what's your gratitude phase come post gift, because that's the easiest one to forget. But we've seen statistically that it has the highest likelihood of someone coming back to make a second gift if they're just thanked properly. And it's just such an easy thing to skip over because you have the gift in hand, but it's like, do you want to be on the hamster wheel forever? Probably not. So, how can you bring people in for the long ride?
And with, are you scheduling out emails like in advance? So like, are you spending basically the month of August and September writing and scheduling your emails for the rest of the year? Or do you ever pop in like sort of spontaneous ones depending on what's happening? Or what does that look like? The sort of email writing and scheduling process?
Yeah, so this is a little advanced. And so what I do for my clients that I actually do writing for is I do what's called a VIP week. So in 1 week on Monday, we meet. By Friday, you have a draft of like 13 emails, your hard copy appeal, your social captions. Like I do it all really fast and in a short period of time. And these are emails that get dripped over many, many, many weeks. So there's the warm-up emails, there's the campaign emails. And then what happens in the back end of your email marketing system specifically is if someone makes a gift, they basically fall out of this scheduled sequence, and maybe they just get looped into your general newsletter where you're doing more information telling or value-based storytelling, and you're not asking as much. But for the people who you're trying to recoup a gift from, yeah, they're getting these emails. Now, can you pause an email or replace an email for something that happens or something that's super timely? Absolutely. But it's really nice because if you pre-write or you pre-plan your campaign, then your energy can really be spent on having those one-on-one meetings with your major gift donors or making those customized asks that for your major gift donors that, an email is not going to cut it. It's also doing all of that really important gratitude. That again, if you're like, well, I don't have time because I've got to send this email. It's like, no, you really should invest in thanking donors via a call or a handwritten note. And you just have a little bit more space. And like, not for nothing. I mean, you and I are both moms to I have a young daughter, you have young kids. Like we've got our own stuff going on. We've got holiday parties, we've got staff to thank, we've got Christmas presents to buy, school's out of session. It's like mad. And so if you don't want it to be super stressful where you're like writing emails the day you're sending them, like, yes, I very much advocate for pre-writing them.
I love that. And you said exactly what I was thinking was like, okay, if all of that is done and thought through, then you have the time and the capacity to add those more personalized touches that are really going to help set you apart and set you over the edge. And I also feel like when you are pre-planning for things like this, you're thinking about it more holistically, more strategically versus like, okay, I got to write an email for this week. Wait, what did we say last week? Like, what are we talking about? Like, there's not like a common thread and it's not done strategically. So I love this. And I just think that the Raise More Together Summit, like you said, is actually perfectly timed. Yes, it's August, but I mean, a lot of kids go back to school in August. Parents are already kind of getting back into that like sort of year end routine and rhythm. So I think this is a perfect time. And if not, if you are still on summer vacation, well, what a better use of your time than some professional development.
Yeah. And if you can't attend
Fantastic.
live, we have the general admission pass comes with 7 days of replay, and the VIP pass for a whopping $77 has unlimited access for life. So it's like you can take it in as you want.
Yeah, I think that's great because it is a little bit overwhelming to think like, oh my gosh, I've got 20 of these things to get through. I'm going to have all my notes and then I have to actually do something with this. Like,
Mm.
that feels a little tricky. So for $77, you can, choose the ones that feel most relevant right now, go through them, take your notes, take action, and then move on to what you need next. I love that. So, oh, so exciting. And I don't know if I knew this, that there's, so you have a private, like a podcast feed, so you can actually just listen to them. You don't have to be
Yes.
glued to your laptop.
Yes.
So
So
good.
I'm a big audio consumer of information. And whether I'm walking my dog or I'm driving in my car or I'm folding laundry, like that's what I would do, frankly, unless there was like a speaker I really, really wanted to listen to the live sessions. But we do put all the recordings of the live sessions in the private podcast feed as well. So it's like, I get it. And to your point, yeah, my daughter literally starts school on Tuesday and then we start the summit on Wednesday. That was intentional. Because it's like, I'm back to work, summer is officially
Yeah.
over and the attention is turning towards this new, really important time period for all of us nonprofits.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited. I can't wait to like watch
Tell the
all of
people,
the
what are your
magic
two
happen.
topics?
Okay, yes. What are my titles again? Okay, I am talking about how to use the 990 as a marketing tool.
So
And so I have
excited about that.
a snazzier, there's a snazzier topic or snazzier title, I should say, but it's basically about like how to use this mandatory tax filing that we all have to fill out and really how to use it strategically, because honestly, it's the first thing that somebody is going to look at when they are assessing whether or not to give to your organization. And I have found like before I even get on a call with a potential new client or even an organization that I personally might donate to, I'm looking at their 990. And maybe it's because I'm a finance person. I'm super familiar with the form, but your savvy funders, that is the first place that they are going. So it's really important to do what you can and really use it strategically because it is something that you have total control over how you're using it. So I just recorded my session last night and I had to do, I don't know if your assistant told you, but I had to do 2 takes because the first one was 23 minutes and I was like, oh, Jess, that's not going to fly with Jess. I got to do this again. So I had to cut a bunch of time out of it, but
Aw.
yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. I think it came out good. And the other one is, oh my gosh, what's my other topic? Do you remember? I got to go look up my projects
I
plan
have
here.
it right here. I can tell the fine folks.
Okay.
Your title
No,
is
what is it?
I have storytelling with financials, translating numbers into impact.
That's
And
right.
then yeah, so tell the people because that's your live one.
Yes. Okay. So this is 60 minutes, which I'm super excited about, storytelling with financials. And we're basically going to look at the financial statements that you already have at your fingertips. You have an income statement, you have a balance sheet. And I'm going to show you some really easy ways to gain some new insights from these numbers. There's like a couple quick calculations, no complicated math, no like weird accounting stuff involved at all. But really then how to shape those numbers into telling a story. And, I think for a lot of donors, seeing numbers is almost more, maybe not more compelling, but as compelling as some sort of like emotional transformational story. A lot of donors really want to see those numbers because that's what clicks in their head. So we're going to talk about, basically your financial statements and really how to translate those into a story. And you don't have to be a numbers person. I think that's the best part because I'm sure a lot of our fundraisers are not numbers people. You're like brilliant, beautiful storytellers and like spreadsheets make you want to cry, perhaps. So we'll make it
Maybe a little
nice
bit
and
of
fun.
crime, but you'll make it a little less painful. And I
It'll
would
be
just,
fun.
I will also say as a fundraiser, I found that the most impactful stories I tell are the ones that infuse the numbers. So really having that information on how we weave the two together is going to be like magic.
Yay. I'm so excited. This is going to be awesome. Okay. So one more time, we will definitely put this in the show notes, but raisemoretogether.co is where you can see all of the speakers and learn more about the summit and get your ticket and all of that good stuff. We'll put everything in the show notes. And and I hope to see you there live. My live session is Wednesday, the 16th at 12 p.m. Eastern. So I'm hoping for a big crowd to talk about numbers.
Yeah, let's come support our girl Stephanie. It's going to be
Yeah.
great. We look forward to seeing you in a few weeks and I'm so grateful to have you a part of it.
Yay. All right. Thank you so much, Jess. I'm so glad we're able to make this happen and excited to just know you now. I'm glad we're in each other's worlds.
Absolutely. From coast to coast.
Yes, exactly. All right. Thanks, Jess. Bye.